Hi, this is Phil Aston from Now Spinning Magazine, and this is the review of the new Steven Wilson mix for Men in Japan. This is part one of my review of this box set. There will be three parts to it. This first part is going to look exclusively at the Steven Wilson mix. Part two will look at the Richard Digby Smith remixes of the three nights individually, and part three will look at the 10 LP vinyl box set. In this episode, I will do the opening of the CD Blu-ray box so you can have a look inside it, and then I'll give you my thoughts on this box, the design and the execution of it, and what I think of the sound quality and how it compares with other versions. Okay, but I've decided to do Richard Digby Smith separately because there's so much to do, and I felt it would be easier to do that as a separate little video, and then the vinyl set will be done separately as well. So first of all, let's dive in and have a look inside this box. So this is a look inside the Men in Japan Super Deluxe edition from 2025. This is the CD Blu-ray edition. It's in a nice shiny black lift-off lid box, very similar to the Black Sabbath Super Deluxe editions, and quite a few things have been done in this format, so very different to the 2014 edition. So you lift off the box, and this is the sheet of paper that was on the back, which fits in the box really well. So this is just giving you an overview of the three complete shows from 1972 tour, 40-page book, replica poster, 2025 remixes by Steven Wilson and Richard Digby Smith, and all the track listings, etc. The front cover is the front of the Live in Japan edition, which was unique to Japan at the time. So those of you who missed the gold glossy look of the original album, they've used that for the booklet. Normally I'm usually saying these should be hardbacks, but I think this is really classy, so I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm going to come to that last of all, in fact. Also included is the Japanese tour program, which was included in the 2014 edition. I will quickly go through that. So it's exactly the same as it was there, because it is an exact replica of that program from that time. So a great, artifact. And for those of you who didn't get the 2014 edition, then obviously this is completely new to you. So that's that program. And obviously then, back in those days, there was only In Rock, Fireball and Machine Head available. And then we have a poster, which is creatively folded up. So as I attempt to open this in front of you now, I'll bring this up as well as a photograph of the poster which I took earlier. So that's on the screen now as I try and put that away. And then underneath that are the actual CDs themselves, and I think these are really well put together. So the original glossy feel of Men in Japan, again, it's the photograph is from the Live in Japan edition of the album. This is a gatefold, as of course was the original vinyl, and the CDs themselves are in little inner polyline sleeves to protect them, which is nice. As you know, normally these discs are usually just shoved in the back, and they replicated the purple label a little bit in colour, but not the actual design. So that's a gatefold sleeve, and on the back there's a feel that you're holding Made in Japan. The others are in single sleeves, so this is these are coming out the box in the order that I've been playing them. So this is CD5, the encores and single edits. So again, little polyline sleeve in there as well. So it's Black Knight Speed King from August 15th, Black Knight Lucille from August 16th, and Black Knight Speed King from Tokyo, August 17th. And there's a Black Knight German live single edit, a Space Trucking Mexican live single edit. That must be interesting. I haven't played that yet. And Smoke on the Water US live single edit, which was a hit. And then we've got the Blu-ray, which is the kind of, for many people, is going to be the meat and spuds of the whole set, really. This includes a Dolby Atmos mix. It includes the 5.1 surround sound DTS in HD mix, also the stereo remix master DTS HD, and also stereo remaster of the original 1972 LP mix as well. So you've got that as well. And there's just the seven tracks there, and of course it comes in a protective sleeve. Then underneath that is CD number 3, in my case, August 16th, picture of Gillen. These pictures are taken from the Live in Japan Japanese edition with the tracks. This is by Richard Digby Smith, 2025. And Blackmore is on the front of the August the 15th one. And again, these pictures are taken from the Live in Japan vinyl edition going all the way back to 1972. And finally, at the bottom of the box is Roger Glover on the front of the August the 17th, 1972 edition. So I'm just going to move that box out of the way and then show you the booklet. You'll notice, those of you who bought the 2024 edition, that as I flick through this, it is basically the same. Even that kind of background feel for the pages and the colours used, everything is the same. Obviously the credits here, because the track listings are different and it's 2025, that's there, but all of this you'll start to realise looks the same as the previous big book that came with the previous edition. I'll talk about what I feel about this in more detail once I get to the other end of it. So I've been through this to try and cross-reference to see what is different, and although there are some differences, it says on the front of the hype sticker, updated booklet, so the clue is there from the beginning. It is roughly exactly the same until you get to the making of Made in Japan, and this time the same picture of Ian Gillan, everything's the same, except obviously Stephen Wilson is answering the questions instead of Martin Pullen. And then the rest continues. We still have this picture of Richie Blackmore from the 74-75 Mark III tour. So that hasn't changed. This discography is altered because they've added in the 2014 box set there, and this is different, showing the different singles, etc. And there's more detail in all the different variants that there was. But that is basically the booklet and the box. And now I'll give my review, part 1 of the actual Stephen Wilson mix. So that's a look inside the CD Blu-ray set, the 50th anniversary, or was it the 53rd? It is really, of Made in Japan, the Stephen Wilson mix with Richard Digby Smith in mixing all the individual nights. That's going to be a separate video. That will be in part 2. This one, if I can just take the glare off that for you, is going to be looking specifically at the Stephen Wilson mix. So before I go on to that, I want to give my personal feelings on what I think of the design of this set, and then I'm going to talk about who it's designed for, what do people think of it, etc. This is just my personal views before I get onto the music. This album has been out many times, as you know, and this black design, which is very classy, has been used before. Before I go into that, I mentioned during the unboxing that the pictures at the front are taken from the Live in Japan set, and that CD version was actually always my reference copy, to be honest, which was also Japanese import. So this is the one that's kind of where all the photographs and the kind of imagery they've decided to go for, which is fair enough. And you saw in the booklet they've taken the classy gold design of the original album as well. So this is my original from 1970. Well, I bought it in 73 at Woolworths for £3.25. So I'm going to reference that again in a few moments. And it's been out. Its first time it appeared in 1993 as the 3 concerts individually. And I know some people are still referencing this as being like, oh, well, I've got that, so I don't need another version. Bear with me, because you do. And then we had, I think it was 1999 version where they used the black kind of design, but with the original photograph from the rainbow on the front cover, which is, again, probably why they moved away from that, because technically these pictures were not taken in Japan at all. They were taken in London even. And, of course, when it came out in 2014, there were multiple versions. There was a vinyl issue, there was a 2 CD version, there was a single CD version, there was a Blu-ray audio version, and if I could find it, the book obviously had the black design, and the discs themselves were kind of just tucked into like little slots where you could pull them out. Okay, right. I'm going to be honest and say that when I first heard that this was coming along, my thoughts were, I was very sceptical. I felt that I'd invested in this, which was quite costly. I didn't get the vinyl version at the time, and I thought, well, surely Martin Pullman, Kevin Shirley's edition, because I mean that was confusing about who'd mixed what, but surely that is definitive. And some of you will know that I then did isolated reviews of Highway Star and Strange Kind of Woman when they released a stream of the Steven Wilson mix, and you'll know that I was incredibly enthusiastic about hearing that, jaw-droppingly enthusiastically, some might say. So it was inevitable that I was going to get this. It's my favourite band, one of my favourite albums of all time. How could I not? So I wasn't exactly being dragged screaming and shouting to get this, although, you know, I just heard 2 songs. The other differences in the sets, you know, the 2014 set had got a press release and a Pete Frame Family Tree and a 7-inch single of Smoke on the Water as well. But that was about it. So I've just got to make sure I've got my notes around me because I'll need them. Is there a disappointment in the design? Yes. Not in the box set itself, not in the way this is put together. Lots of Now Spinning Magazine subscribers and patrons have said they think this is really classy. It's fantastic. It's only going to be a bit disappointing to anyone who bought the 2014 edition. Now, something for all of you who did need to realise is this box isn't necessarily aimed directly at you. What surprised me and made me realise that at the age that I am, that actually there's lots of people on the planet who are a bit younger than me. And there were lots of people that didn't buy the 2014 edition because they either missed it or they were in their kind of curve of their musical evolution where they weren't perhaps totally aware of Made in Japan, or they got Made in Japan, but they hadn't kind of fallen in love with it as much as many of us already had. So when I gave my initial kind of, again, surely what is the point of this? Lots and lots and lots of people reached out and said, well, I didn't get that, Phil. So I'm going for this because I didn't get that one. So this just looks fantastic. And that is something to bear in mind here. So if you didn't get that one, this is a complete no-brainer anyway, because why would you go after that one, which costs absolutely tons on eBay or Discogs, when this now exists? And I'm going to come on to the sound any minute. The only disappointment for those of you, I think, who've got both, is that the book, which is 11 years old, is basically the same. It says on the hype sticker, updated book. And you would think in 11 years, and something where a lot of time and effort has gone into this, that they couldn't have found some more quotes from rock stars who maybe didn't have a chance to quote in the first book, or maybe Ian Pace, who's been waxing lyrical about Made in Japan. Could they not have transcribed his video reviews and put that in the book? Or even taken out the Mark III pictures of Richie and replaced it with probably the most classic picture of Richie Blackmore from the Made in Japan period, which is that one. I don't know, I'm being picky, but there again, you know, the target audience for this are picky. Because many of the target audience have this multiple times anyway. So that's all I can say for the actual physical side, really. The booklet could have been perhaps updated more than just Steven Wilson's interview, which is very fascinating. Okay, those of you who are now probably agree with me on that, or maybe not. Let me know in the comments. But what about the music? I said a few moments ago that I bought this in 1973. Who Do We Think We Are just come out. I was just getting into Deep Purple. So I'm 14 years of age. Okay, this is important for those of you to understand how important this release is to me and how skeptical I was, right? You know, £3.25, my original copy. It quickly became one of my favourite albums of all time. So what I'm saying is I've played this album thousands and thousands of times. The 7 tracks, playing it to annoy my parents, to annoy anyone who wasn't into the kind of music I was into, having it when Walkmans came along, having it, walking around with it, buying different versions right through. I mean, it was the vinyl version, and even when I lived in London, I bought a different version, so I didn't have to. So I had 2, and then obviously the CD came along, and I bought that, and I've always just loved this album. I know it back to front, and all the different remastered versions, even the Martin Paulin remix and everything. I have to say, they were good, and I kept saying, I've done 2 videos on this album. One of them was talking about all the different versions. One of them was recommending which one to get, and I was still recommending this one because it had the original kind of fades in it, whereas all the others have been messed with, either with just keeping the crowd going. I'm being train spotterish, but that's what many of you expect me to be like. But I have to say that this version, and I'm just talking about the Steven Wilson mix, I'm going to do Richard Digby Smith's bit in part 2. This is absolutely mind-blowingly amazing, okay? I will not be able to come up with enough words. My vocabulary, I can't even say that word, isn't vast enough to try and portray what this has meant to me. And I approached this with thinking, well, how different can it be? It's been remixed before. I know how this was remixed and how many tracks there were. This is, the people running around the stage. What can Steven Wilson possibly do? I am a huge Steve Wilson fan. I don't think every remix he's ever done has been absolutely dramatically different, and I was skeptical, thinking, I wonder if now he's spreading his wings to kind of be moving towards more mainstream stuff, because he's always been the prog guy, but he's moved towards Black Sabbath and stuff. And I think maybe some labels thought we need Steven Wilson to remix this. If we're going to get anyone to buy it, Steven Wilson is the brand we need to put on the front. But I can tell you this, and I haven't spoken to Steven yet, but I'm hoping to, is that he did not approach this as thinking, well, that'll be a good earner. He's approached this in a way that I just don't know in a way where to start. And those of you who know me will know, bear with. That I actually said in the WhatsApp group recently, this is so good, I actually don't know how to approach reviewing it. I'm so close to this album, I don't know how to approach it. And to review it, and this is why I'm doing it in 3 parts, I decided to use the Blu-ray. I didn't use the Atmos mix or the 5.1 mix to do the review. I used the new stereo Steven Wilson mix through the Blu-ray at a really, really good volume. And I just pressed play to listen to those 7 tracks. And the first one is Highway Star. And the way it starts, that little shuffle on the drums before John Law comes in with the and then it starts to build up, and you just hear them all revving up. And this is the other thing for you to realise, that position where Richie, obviously on stage, is always on the right and John Lord is on the left. And why on Made in Japan did it get reversed, and why haven't they put it right? I found this in the Steven Wilson interview very enlightening. It was mixed by Roger Glover and Ian Pace. And as Steven Wilson says, it's highly possible that they mixed it from where they sat when they're on stage. So from where they are on stage looking out to the audience, Richie would be on the left and John Lord would be on the right. And so the best way to approach this, and I've never thought about this before, but this is what I did. Imagine that you know somebody who knows Deep Purple, and they invite you on their 1972 tour to be on stage with them, where you can stand just behind or sit just behind Ian Pace, looking out towards the audience in Japan as they record this album. And if you think of it like that, that's exactly where you are. If you want to transport yourself into the audience, you're about 5 or 6 rows from the stage, I would say. The way this starts, some people said that Blackmore's guitar at some point was quieter than what you know, but once you get your head into this, I didn't feel that at all. And in fact, as I've said before, you can hear Roger Glover is playing a Rickenbacker bass, incredibly popular back then. I think everyone had one. And the most obvious Rickenbacker kind of like twangy feel that you got from the bass guitar like that was Chris Squire from Yes, who obviously really doubled down on the Rickenbacker sound. But you can hear that it is a Rickenbacker that Glover's playing. You can hear every note. You can hear the rattle of the strings against the fretboard, and the drums, the toms that Ian Pace is playing, they're huge. The drum kit sounds so different. And when you hear the bass and the drums lock in to John Lord on his solo on Highway Star, it is just absolutely incredible. I can't say whether I was smiling so much that I was almost bringing tears to my eyes, or whether it was I was just welling up with something I've heard for so long in my life. How I started to experience this, I just sat there on the sofa with this playing out in front of me, and when Blackmore comes in with his solo, it's so the clarity of it, the rock and roll edge to it, the fact that you want, is he going to make it? Is he going to make it? As he plays these sixteenths, these notes, they're just flying out. And then the way he uses that tremolo arm, and you think, how can any guitar not only survive that, but remain in tune to carry on? You think how most bands would have thought, I'm not going to do that because this has been recorded live and it's going to go out and I can't take the risk. This is a band that are taking risks and not playing safe. You can almost feel there are slight imperfections in the way that they're playing that now would be tidied up by some kind of AI, or whether the band was, I need to redo that, I can't cope with it, I can't let that go out. This is just completely undoctored rock and roll. Completely undoctored. I've said before that this captures the band at their most dangerous, their most on the edge. Is it going to make it? Will it work? And in fact, when you play each of the 3 nights, which is going to be in the separate video, you know that it didn't always work. They didn't always reach that point when Ian Pace goes around the kit. Was Richie Blackmore going to reach the right note at the right time? Sometimes they didn't. But it's still exciting because this is real people playing real instruments in real time. And it is, the clarity of this recording is fantastic. The dynamics in this track in Highway Star, I heard things I haven't been aware of. It's like being transported for all of these decades, all the decades of all the different stages in my life playing this album. I'm suddenly picked up and placed in Japan to hear this for the first time. It resembles things. My memory tells me I know this, but I don't know this. As it ends, Highway Star, the first thing I noticed that is different in this respect to the original recording is I'm so used to hearing Ian Gillan say, that's a new one, it's taken from Machine, it's a song about Larry, whatever. That doesn't happen. That's been taken out, and we go straight into Child in Time. So that was kind of, because I like things to be this, that's the thing where I've got so used to that. The fact that that's missing again, and it's only on here, was a bit of a surprise in a way. It probably popped up somewhere else, but I'm focusing on the Steven Wilson mix for this. Now, Child in Time, I was more aware of the bass of Roger Glover when we have the first kind of move towards the very low ooze from Ian Gillan and he sings here. I could hear the kind of more of the rhythming, rolling bass from Roger Glover, and the kind of hi-hat and the rim shots from Ian Pace, and the gentle kind of work from John Lord, and obviously the chord work from Richie Blackmore as well. I'm more aware The sound stage is far bigger and wider than I've ever experienced it before. And when it comes in, when we go into the full throttle scream, in my notes I just put, wow. As the drums and the keyboards cut in here, it's just immense. I'm just pulled, literally pulled into the soundstage in front of me, and I'm experiencing Deep Purple as I've never experienced Deep Purple Mark II ever. Seriously. I know that some people will be saying, well, why mess with something? Mess with it. If it's going to do this, just keep messing with it, honestly. And when that guitar solo comes in Child in Time, Ritchie Blackmore, it's one of Ritchie Blackmore's finest guitar solos of all time. It's jaw-droppingly good on the original mix, on the original vinyl, okay? It's a showcase for Ritchie Blackmore. The studio version on In Rockies, obviously. It's a kind of it's a classroom thing to show people this is what a guitar can do. But here it's just so fluid. Obviously it's the same solo, but the way what Steven Wilson has done with the mix here, it sounds like if someone gave you a ticket to see if somehow the band had either been pulled forward at the age they were and they're going to play at your favourite venue tonight and you're going, I can't think of any other way that they could have made this music sound so timeless and like it's just appeared today for the first time, or whether you've gone back in a time machine. In the band, the bass, the drums, everybody's just bouncing off each other. You're totally aware of Ian Pace. You're totally aware more of the driving power of Ian Pace throughout the whole of this Deep Purple concert than ever before. You can hear every drum. It's just incredible. And at the end of this song, when we come out and we're going towards the end, and Ian Gillan starts saying you're only about 4'6", but don't worry about it. You can hear every word. That was kind of a sort of distance in the background. You can hear every word that Ian Gillan says towards the end of this song. And when it comes into that crash ending, the clarity between each instrument, there's no muffled kind of muddy aspect here. This is just absolute audio perfection without taking anything away from the power and the raw energy of Deep Purple Mark II live at the height of their game. Smoke on the Water. Some of you must have heard this so many times. Do I need to hear it again? You do, because you won't have heard it like this. Not because, obviously, the one from August the 15th, because it was the only time he played it without making a bit of a botch up on the riff, is the definitive version, as we all know. And here, the first thing you notice with this song, and you've played it a million times, which I have, is the bass. It's so powerful. There's a slight bit of feedback as well, isn't there? There are slight bits of feedback throughout this concert. That proves it's real. There are kind of flaws in it, professionally recorded flaws, which makes you know that this is not AI. And I can't imagine any band having let a thing where there's a bit of squeal of feedback in between the notes. This is Deep Purple. The solo is so fluid and so clever. Again, I still think a lot of metal guitarists would have just filled it with even more notes, but here it's kind of bluesy, it's rock and roll. You can hear when Blackmore, you can't hear the switch flick, but you're more aware of the fact when he goes from the bridge pickup to the neck pickup, where you hear that more bite when he goes to the bridge pickup, and you can actually, and then the more bass rich meaty note as he switches the pickup switch, and that again it's just so real to me. It's just fantastic, and I'm more aware of Ian Gillan's ad libs as we move towards the end of the track, and that bit when both John Lord and Ritchie Blackmore do that trade off at the very end. It's so exciting. Then the Mule, one of only 2 drum solos that I listen to nowadays. And the reason why I feel that this one will never fade from my love of a drum solo, whereas many of the others have long gone, is that this is a musical drum solo, so well thought out. And of course here, the mule, the clarity of the vocals from Ian Gillan, I can hear every single word. And it's like hearing it for the very first time. It's full stereo, I put down in my notes. It's so wide. It's a drum solo you can enjoy. And the other thing is the crowd are so excited, that kind of whooping and hollering as Ian Pace goes through all the different kind of styles and getting slower, getting faster and all the rest of it. They're just with him. It makes the thing sound so exciting. Strange Kind of Woman I've talked about separately, but the solid sound of the bass and the drums and the just driving rock and roll. And I think, as Steven Wilson says, as he was listening to it and obviously mixing it, he said that Deep Purple, at the end of the day, are a rock and roll band. And they are. You realise that there's a lot of rhythm and blues. There's a lot of blues in their playing, blues in their, from what they're playing, the scale, especially we come onto Lazy, but just the feel here. And it is like being there. I'm more aware of John Lord on Strange Kind of Woman than I was before, obviously because of the mix. And then the interplay between Ian Gill and Richie Blackmore, it's just absolutely amazing. It's like I could say those words I was talking about if you've never heard Man in Japan before, but I'm talking to you as if you have heard Man in Japan before, but you won't have heard Man in Japan like this. Lazy, the in-between chat, is exactly the same as the original vinyl album. Lord's motif at the very start of this track is almost identical to the one he uses in Highway Star, and for some reason I've never really noticed that before. The clarity of the build-up is amazing. It's driving blues rock. I just love the interplay. I just love the sheer power of what a guitar, a Hammond organ, a bass guitar and drums and a voice can actually make. Where are we now? I'm on track Lazy, and these are notes I made as I went through the remix for the first time. I was mesmerised by this, and I'll be honest, sometimes I review things that I know really well because it's a remaster remix, and I'm kind of getting a bit not impatient, thinking, well, 2 more tracks to go, and I'll, and then I'll listen to it again and I'll make a few notes. I was in this, completely immersed in it. I looked up at the track listing on my telly because I'm playing it through the Blu-ray, and I just thought, I don't want this to end. I don't want this to end. And of course, we come to the end of Lazy, and it does kind of crossfade almost into Space Trucking. And I was thinking, this is a journey now. This is the track side 4, one song. Space Trucking, originally just about 5 minutes long, is now going to be extended to nearly 20 minutes. I know this. I've always thought of this being a showcase really for John Lord more than anyone else. It's different now. You can hear Gillan really clearly at the beginning, where his voice was always a bit muffled at the original vinyl. And when we get to the first part of Space Trucking, the riff, the chords, the thunderous drums, the enormity, the height and depth of the mix, let alone the width. It's kind of, everything sounds massive. The drums are powerful. I think this is one of the key things about modern rock recordings and the recordings back then and older studio recordings. This is why remixing is the way forward for lots of things, because the drum sound and the bass sound, as if this is recorded, the modern recording techniques recorded live at the O2 Arena in 2025. It's that different. Blackmore's guitar solo, that first part of Space Trucking, is just so meaty and thick. It's just so, you wouldn't know it's a Strat. It sounds more like a Les Paul. It's just absolutely incredible. There's just so much going on. There is so much going on at this point, and again, Roger Glover's Rickenbacker is bubbling away, not in the background, literally in your face. I then wrote in my notes, this is the most defining album of Deep Purple's entire career. I always think of three albums when I think of Deep Purple from the classic period. I think of Burn, which is always my number one album, Come Taste the Band, and Man in Japan, as summing everything that they've done. And no word of a lie, my number one Deep Purple album at this point in time is Man in Japan, and it is the Steven Wilson remix. You can hear them all. You can hear all of them. It's as clear as a bell. It's like being there. I've said that multiple times because it really is. The crowd, the ambience of the crowd, it's there. The way this has been recorded, I mean, this is even before I get to the surround sound version. It's just amazing. When John Lord plays that clip from Holst, I Vow to Thee, My Country, during his keyboard solo part, it's just so clear, so magical, so exciting. And we obviously go into Magistrate Route as well from, Shades. And then Richie Blackmore enters on the left with a complete piece of controlled mayhem on his tremolo arm, where he makes the guitar sounds like it's been tortured and drowned and literally strangled from the depths of somewhere or other. It's amazing. Do you know, I always love this part, but here you know it really is a guitar. I mean, when I first heard this as a young teenager, because I bought it on cassette first, I couldn't work out, is this keyboards? Is that guitar? What is it? What's going on? Is that tremolo? What's happening here? But here, you know for definite, this is Richie Blackmore, and you can hear almost the rattle of the tremolo springs in the back of the guitar. It's incredible. And then we go into that section from Falls, from Fireball, where it always goes quiet, but you can hear the Ian Pace's fantastic rhythm going on behind it. And each time Richie Blackmore uses his volume control and brings it up, you can hear John Lord bringing up that Hammond chord just for the notes to rest on. Amazing. And then, of course, we have that false ending, and then it's a race to the finish. This is a few minutes of absolute tremolo arm destruction, guitar probably being slid up and down his thigh, up the amps. And again, this is a band of things. I know it's been recorded, but this is what we do. It's just absolute mayhem. It's fast, it's furious. They're both all racing to the finish. The whole band are on fire. And you can visualize how exciting it must be to have been there, to witness this, because this is the closest I feel you'll ever get to experiencing that for the concert that doesn't have a video and it wasn't recorded. And then we end, and you can hear every last decaying note from John Lord's organ before they vanish off the stage. And I just wrote, wow. I say a lot when you have a remix that it's a different flavour, it's a different way of experiencing an album you know really well. It doesn't replace the original mix. It's just a different way of hearing it. I'm going out on a limb here perhaps, but this is my favourite band and it's one of my favourite albums, and this is how I feel, and I'm saying this from the heart. This mix replaces those. All these other versions of this that I have going back to 1972 and all the others, I don't know where they all are now. This replaces them. I think it's highly unlikely that I will ever, when I want to enjoy Man in Japan or a track from Man in Japan, I'm going to go for the Steven Wilson remix to listen to it. That's it. The others I'm not going to get rid of. They're part of my collection. I love them. But this, if I want to experience it, if someone came around to my house and said, Phil, you know this album in Japan, is it any good? It would be this version I put on. I wouldn't even talk about the others. And if someone said to me now, which version should I get, Phil? The Steven Wilson remix is the version of Made in Japan that you need to have in your house. Will it be released separately? I don't know. Record companies kind of tend to do that after a while, so I wouldn't say they definitely won't do that. In the 2014 one, there was a DVD in there. It didn't have a documentary in it. Obviously, that makes that box unique. It also had the Hofra stuff, but this box set has the Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray also has the original 1972 mix on it. If you really want it and you can't let go of it, it is in this box on the Blu-ray. Is there anything else that could have been done musically to do with the Steven Wilson remix that could have made it better? Yes. The Blu-ray has the 7 songs of the original album, So technically, it's perfect. However, for many of us, Black Knight from Tokyo, which came out on 24 karat purple and was on the B-side of many singles, for many of us feels like it's part of that concert. So if there is kind of a feeling that couldn't Stephen have just remixed that version of Black Knight and just had it as track 8 on the Blu-ray? I mean, they're all remixed by Richard on a separate CD, so that's me being a bit churlish perhaps, but that's the only thing that I would have thought, well, maybe what else could have gone on the Blu-ray? Could Stephen have done Black Knight? He probably would have thought, well, which one do I do? But it's the Tokyo one that is amazing. Now, to give you a bit of kind of a window into the Richard Digby Smith one, I have to say I did play his version, his remix of the Tokyo version of Black Knight, and again it completely supersedes all the other versions of that track you ever heard. But that is going to be on part 2 of this video series, looking at the 50th anniversary, 53rd really, of Made in Japan. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Let me know what you think. Have you bought this? What do you think of it? Has it surprised you? Is this the first time you've heard Made in Japan? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. It'd be great to hear from you and to hear what you think. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. Please subscribe, become a YouTube member or a patron. You'll get 15% off all merch, and you'll also get an invite to the WhatsApp group and the Facebook group, and also an invite to our twice monthly virtual pub called the Now Spinning Arms. Keep spinning those discs. Take care, all of you, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.